There are three bills in play right now that are about to change the American dollar forever. Good afternoon. You are watching Filibusted. I am Doug Smith, and we're going to be talking about these bills. So, why don't you guys stick around and find out what they're going to do for us? Okay, so on the side here, we have some information about these bills, and I honestly, it was weird. I was getting fed stuff on X about taxes and stuff in general, and it was like one thing would come up. Somebody said something about this particular bill, and I was like, "Oh, that's an interesting one." And then another thing came up about a different bill, and I was like, "What is going on here?" There's all kinds of bills coming up that seem to be affecting taxes specifically right now. And so I started doing some research on it, and I found even more. So I thought this was going to be a fun topic to talk about because you guys know me by now. I am all about getting rid of some taxes. So we are
we talking about like $1 bills, $5 bills? Like what denomination of bill are we talking about here? No, I'm just
$3 bills. $3 bills.
The $2 bills are coming back.
Yeah, I'm one of those like crazy people. My kids sometimes get the $2 bills as like gifts from their grandparents, and they're like trying to spend it. And I'm like, you do not spend your $2 bills.
That's right. Don't spend these.
That's right.
100%.
So this first one is called the Fair Tax Act, and this one is pretty cool actually. I'm just going to give a little breakdown of the details. It's pretty simple. The important details are it would eliminate federal income, payroll, estate, and gift taxes and replace it with a 23% flat sales tax. And it might include some sort of monthly rebate for low income. And I'm going to make a quick disclaimer on all of these bills that I'm talking about. They are not passed yet, and we're going to give the exact status of them. But this status is basically idle. It was introduced in January. And I would like to note that idle doesn't mean dead, because sometimes, when you see the little status bar on the bills, it'll actually go to like, I don't think it says dead, but it's like whatever. It's still at the beginning of that little status bar in whatever. I don't have that one pulled up, but so not dead. It's just sitting there waiting for more.
There's a chance.
I'm saying there's a chance. So I personally like to think of idle meaning like kind of a car idles. It's just warming up, That's how I think of it. So
this is crazy. I did a whole episode on this, the way we could replace the income tax.
I know. Yeah, I actually was trying to go back through the episodes to be like, wait, what did we already talk about on this?
Yeah, and I didn't cover this bill. I didn't know about this bill, but that was one of the options, and one of the ones that was probably more feasible was replacing it with a national sales tax that's just across the board. And of course, we talked about some of the pros and cons of that, which maybe we'll get into. But
yeah, so my opinion on this is, out of the couple that I'm about to talk about, I think this is probably the most likely one to pass through. But if the others pass, then this one might not even be needed. That's kind of like the weird catch on it. So it depends. But the reason I think it's more likely is because bills, when they get introduced, they start to gain more and more traction. And this one has been introduced in the past a few times. And they obviously weren't passed. But that was under all different authorities, aka presidents, and different political landscapes as well. And when you have a political landscape like we have right now, with crazy things like the military rolling through DC, we're in a much different political landscape than the previous times that these bills were presented, right? And in addition to this, the part of this is going to basically get rid of the IRS in a sense. And so I just wanted to talk about the IRS for a second here. The IRS has already suffered a major setback, which I believe is a good setup for this being an easy transition, right? We all know that DOJ axed like thousands of people from the IRS. And then Erin Collins she's a spokesperson for taxpayer spokesperson, national taxpayer advocate. She said, it is critical that the IRS hire them, by them being more people to work at the IRS by the end of summer, so it can onboard them, provide them with adequate training, and ensure that they are prepared to assist taxpayers when the 2026 filing season begins in January. And then they fired more. And then she went on to admit that the number of total IRS employees is less important than the number of trained IRS employees, which is quite telling. and also pretty much the way the government works. That's like she just like said the quiet part out loud. Like they don't need to know what they're doing. We just need to be hiring them. That's
what
how
in the world?
So,
Got to use those budget dollars, otherwise you lose them next year.
Yeah, exactly. To me, this looks like a bit of a death rattle. I would venture to guess that if by the end of this year we have not hired more IRS agents to do these jobs, which is long past the summer deadline, that's quite the buffer, then next year's 2026 taxes are going to be really quite the show to watch. And this is not speculation either. This is a fight that the IRS and advocates are up against, and so far it appears as though they're losing this fight. And so that's gonna segue really well into this next bill. But I want to get your guys' commentary first on this, and what do you think of this bill in particular?
Well, the first thought I have here is with the underfunding of the IRS. If you want to consider an underfunding or not, it plays into an interesting strategy for doing away with the IRS, because if the IRS stops functioning well because you underfunded it, then you have even more reason to just do away with it, and be like, oh, the IRS, because here's part of the issue with underfunding the IRS. And we talked about this before in previous, how do we do away with income tax? Was one of the problems with the income tax is people getting around it, right? And doing tax fraud, essentially. Well, the way you crack down on tax fraud is you get better at hunting down people that are committing tax fraud, so you can gather all those taxes instead of letting them, get away with stuff. But you can't do that if you underfund the IRS. So It's like you have to pay more money to make money, or you move the budget to, be more efficient. You do the Doge things where it's like, okay, we're not just throwing more money at you, IRS, but we're cutting all the fat, and we're using AI or, whatever. We're going to do things cheaper, but somehow you need to like boister the IRS, whether it's through more funding or just through more efficiency, for them to cut back on fraud. But if you don't want to do that, if you just want to do away with the IRS, then it's like, okay, well, make the IRS struggle so they get worse at their job. They'll bring in less taxes next year. And then you have more reason to be like, well, let's just kill the IRS then, because they're not doing their job. So let's replace them with, I'm just saying the strategy. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but I can see the strategy.
So it's interesting. The proposed tax rate for this National Sales Tax Act, what is it called? The Fair Tax Act, is 23%. I don't know if you said that or not, Doug, but that's the proposed rate. So if you bought something that cost around $77, now it would cost $100, right? We already have sales tax, and that is usually a state tax. The
state and local.
And local sales tax, right? And state and local sales tax, some of them exclude essential things like housing, healthcare, and groceries, things like that. Some of them. So all you would have to do is cut those things out of your budget, and then you could get off scot-free. You wouldn't pay any taxes at all. So so I think this is great. I'm gonna talk to Leslie about it and see if we can cut out housing, healthcare, and groceries. And we're gonna get so rich. That's awesome. So no, but that's my funny response to it.
Good luck with that.
My honest response, though, is that, Doug, you said that it might need some prebates. I think it 100% would. Like, I think 100% this to pass and to actually be viable would need some sort of prebate program to ensure that households at or below poverty level, are taken care of, honestly, because it's like, but here's the problem is a lot of, at or below poverty level, a lot of those people are already not paying taxes or not paying many taxes because of their income level so low.
Yeah, their taxes will go up if you switch.
And their taxes are going to go up.
Their taxes, the total taxes they pay will go up.
If we're taxing things like housing, we're taxing things like groceries, and there's almost a 25% tax on that. And every year that tax is going to go up as the government revenue needs go up. Then it's like the next year it's going to be 24%, and then 25 the next year, and then 26. That's going to keep going up. So those basic things are going to get more expensive. So their taxes are going to go up. So it would have to have a prebate. I'm just saying I think it would need it on both sides. It would need it so that we can actually take care of people that need to be taken care of. And I'm not saying that I know some people are rigging the system. Some people are, just lazy or whatever, but that's not everybody.
Yeah.
But also it would have to happen just to get this thing passed, I think.
So, okay, most states don't tax groceries. So that's like, that's not that's something to think about. Like, that's not like buying food. Yeah. Okay. Buying your Nikes and your new iPhone. Yeah. You're going to pay a larger tax on that. But groceries, if you notice, go to the grocery store and you buy a bottle of water or a bag of chips or bread, it's not taxed. So most states, for me though, eliminating the federal income tax, that's like what, 12 or 13%, something like that. And this is 23%. My question is 23% what the original bill in 1999, was that also 23%? Like, I guess I'm not clear on how, like, is 23% still the right number? How do we know that's the right number? Like, that's kind of my question.
That's the proposed number in this one. The proposed tax rate is 23% tax inclusive in the first year, which would be 2025.
Doug, was there any exemptions for like food or something like that? Or is it 25% on everything?
I did not see any exemptions.
But that's what I'm trying to say is food. Yeah. So that's a new tax then. So then that would mean
would be a very different tax. Exactly. Yes. That's what I'm saying is there would need to be some sort of rebate. So, I mean, think about that.
But if you think about
we're having with
low income families also have SNAP benefits and other kinds of things. And so there might be all kinds of exclusions for that. Like there's already,
right. But we're already
housing allowances. You have all kinds of stuff. And what they need to have is ladders to come out of those, not be dependent on it. But that's another topic.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. And would that be even worse if we're especially if you're giving people like writing a check, if the government's sending people a check, or something like that, what if they're not even using that for food? What if they're doing, you know what I mean? Like how does that work? Then you have to have some sort of like SNAP benefits program. You have to have some sort of like food stamp program, instead of just giving people a check at the beginning of the year or whatever.
But it's a situation because I don't like the idea of raising taxes on like literally the poorest people in our society of like, we're going to jack up your taxes like crazy. But I'm also a realist in the sense of like, if we're going to replace income tax, which, we have some serious issues with because of the incentives, it's like, if we're going to replace it, you have to, I know we need to be cutting back more on government spending, but if you're going to seriously be like, we're replacing this now, you have to fully replace the income. This is where I think that that bill has a much more likelihood of chances of passing if they do what the Secretary of Commerce has stated. I forgot what his name is, but our current Secretary of Commerce has stated that he's trying to do with the income tax for anybody that makes less than $150,000. So there would be an income tax on people that make over $150,000. And the funny thing is, people that make over $150,000, that's like 10% of the earners in the United States, and they pay over 50% of the income tax. So like the bottom 90 pays about 50% or like 40% of all income taxes. The upper 10% of income earners pay the other 50 to 60% of income taxes. And so if they still had the income tax, then maybe we could get away with having a much smaller sales tax to replace that bottom side. Like what if maybe we could get away with doing a 10% federal sales tax? That's a lot better than 23%, like cut it in half. By not taking away the income tax from the highest earners. That's an idea.
Right. One thing that I would say, I'm obviously pushing back a little bit, playing the devil's advocate, but one thing I do like about what is proposed with this act is another thing that they've said is that this prebate that would be, given to low income families, essentially based on the size of the family, the income, all that kind of stuff, would not include illegal immigrants. So it would not include illegal aliens. And so it would increase the cost for non-citizens, right? To buy essential basic things, because they would not have that, that offset there.
The ones who aren't paying income tax.
Exactly. They're not paying income tax. And so now they start paying taxes and they are less incentivized to come to the States illegally, so that would be a good thing. I mean, I think that'd be a positive side is if you are a documented citizen of the United States, and you are low income, you get the prebate. If not, you're not getting it, So I think that would be good.
It gets even better. You want to throw out your thought, and then we're gonna move to the next one because we got more to talk about.
I don't know if this is right, but I thought I saw there was a sunset clause in there that says if the 16th Amendment's not repealed or removed within 7 years of enactment, this taxes automatically ceases.
You just so happen to be segueing us
all right,
into the
let's
next
go.
bill. But first, let's hear a word from our sponsors.
Investing can be confusing and scary, but it doesn't have to be. Genesis Gold Group takes the guessing out of the game and guides you on your gold investment journey. We at Filibusted love the genius design of the prepper bar, which breaks up into sections, kind of like a chocolate bar. But if you prefer high security insured gold storage, they have that too. And unlike Fort Knox, the gold is actually there, 100% owned by you. So don't wait to get started. Visit filibustedgold.com today for a free investment guide from Genesis Gold Group. Man, we got a good looking like model on that ad there. Like
Nailed it.
You picked the right actor for that.
Nailed it.
Yeah. Genius idea. I don't know who came up with that, but should be raking it in anytime now. That's how you do it right there. Good call, Ryan. That is exactly what we're going to talk about next. I already pulled up the next one. So you can't really do a lot with taxes unless you do this one first. And this is my favorite concept. The HJ Res, I don't remember what that stands for. 14 is a bill that does just this. It repeals the 16th Amendment, and this has been introduced. And that, like, the title literally is exactly the title that they refer to over here. I don't see it in there, but it's just the HJ Res 14 or whatever.
Proposing an amendment to the Constitution of the United States to repeal the 16th article of amendment. And what is the 16th Amendment?
The 16th Amendment is, I'm glad you asked. The Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes on income from whatever source derived, without apportionment among the several states and without regard to any census or enumeration. Basically, Congress can do whatever they want with your money.
They can put their hand in your pocket, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, which, I mean, it's crazy. So this bill to repeal the 16th
Ridiculous.
it was introduced in January of this year as well. It removes the constitutional foundation of the IRS. That is the point of it. It would need ratification by 38 states and 2/3 of Congress. And it has been referred to committee. It is not scheduled. It is idle in the same way as the previous one is just sitting there waiting for more action to be taken on it. My opinion on this one is it's kind of tricky, because if you look at the minimum requirements to change the Constitution, it appears like monumental. That's a really, really difficult thing to do, but
30
it is possible.
states, 2/3 of Congress. That's so high.
It's a lot.
This amendment was made in 1913. In case anybody was curious, I just looked that up. I wasn't sure when it passed.
I
1913.
think I remember something about Fed and central banks or something around that time. Huh?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
That's an interesting point too.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Maybe like a system they set up there. Interesting.
It's because it's a joint resolution, not a bill.
Yeah.
That's why it requires the 2/3 vote.
Oh yeah. Good call. I'm just.
And it does not require. So the
bills.
president actually would have nothing to do with this. It does not require the presidential approval.
Yeah.
Schoolhouse Rock.
Boom.
So I think that this one's
Sing
interesting.
the song, Ryan. You got to sing.
I couldn't remember it, or I would have broke into it.
Oh, there's a song for it. I didn't know that.
Sitting on
A
Capitol
bill.
Hill.
Oh my gosh.
I'm just a bill.
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about. I totally forgot about that. That's hilarious. Oh man. Well, I think this one's interesting because I think we're seeing a shift in politics in general right now. A lot of people, like politicians, are talking about this, obviously, because they're the ones who are putting these bills out. And we're starting to kind of move toward this concept of what are we really doing with these taxes, you know? So it's going to be interesting to see if this one gets more traction or attention, if Trump starts pushing them or whatever happens. And if the representatives that we have in Congress right now are picking up on this idea that the American people don't want to be taxed. So I wonder if this is going to be a big platform for politicians, because we're moving into an election season next year, and they're the ones up for election. The Congress is up for election. And my personal opinion on the 16th Amendment is it is the most non-American part of our Constitution. It does not embody the spirit of the surrounding text in the Constitution. And in fact, I would hazard to say that it directly defies the entire point of the Constitution. It effectively eliminates personal privacy. It has no ceiling. The IRS could theoretically tax your entire income. There is no check and balance. Congress has all the power over citizens' money, and it is anti-constitutional and should be removed. That is my extremely strong opinion. What's yours?
Interesting. Well, it is interesting to note, because it's like
the Titanic sank in 1912, and there was an important guy on there.
Here we go.
That was against the formation of all this stuff. So I'm just gonna say, go ahead and go get in your conspiracy theory corner and research that. But
That's a good one.
I think, and then 1913, that's when this. So I don't know. I think that we absolutely need to get rid of it. Like, I don't care what it takes. We definitely need to get rid of it. And is absolutely unconstitutional. That is well said. That is the best way to summarize it. And you gave all the specifics as to why. And so, but it has become so normalized to where, well, we got to figure out how we're going to fund this ridiculous thing that we shouldn't have. It's like a drug addict trying to find new ways to fund his drug habit instead of just, get rid of the drug habit.
So the state gives them free needles.
And we say, right? Yeah, that's a great thing. And so, but at least they're clean needles, Doug. Like,
right. I know.
But so, my thoughts is this absolutely needs to happen. And I can't, there's so many things though, and so many excuses that people have. And so, but most of them aren't good. And it's just kind of like, well, it's going to be a lot of hard work for us to figure this out. And we shouldn't do hard work in government.
It's an interesting question though, because before, does this include the government's ability for like corporate taxes? I'm assuming there was corporate fees and things were still a thing before this occurred, right? Because this is just personal income.
I mean, I think the personal income is the biggest target. I didn't look up maybe corporate taxes, but really the way you read the 16th Amendment is so like wide. You could apply it to so much. So it depends on what's underneath the Congress's power or authority. You know what I mean? So anything that they control, that's what this applies to. It removes the constitutional powers to tax anything that the Congress can tax. So if the Congress can tax it, it removes that constitutional power behind it. That's the essence of it.
Yeah.
So they would have
it's so interesting. I mean, I guess before this, the whole country was funded. I know I've heard people say the whole country was funded with like tariffs, and then I guess there was like corporate fees and stuff like that. Maybe they didn't have corporate taxes. I might have to look more into that, because I know Ryan keeps saying like the drug addict thing of like. But still, I mean, I'm definitely a realist when it comes to the fact that we still have a very big government that needs to pay its bills. We're also very deeply in debt. I saw somebody here in the comments threw in that, I'm throwing out all the ideas. I'm playing the devil's advocate because I don't like taxes either, obviously, and I think we do better with lower taxes. But it's just as far as like, if we do away with this and then we completely do away with the income tax, where's this person's comment? I thought it was so good. They just said that. Oh, here he is. Could you imagine a billionaire just buy overseas and avoid tax any whatsoever? It's a shift from higher, more income taxes to lower earning consumers. I think there's a lot of truth to this, and that idea of if we completely do away with taxes and only have sales tax. So I know a lot of libertarians like that idea because you're incentivizing people to make more money. We're not taxing. If you make more money, we're not taking your money away from you. So it's like it incentivizes wealth production, which is fantastic. We still have a government that has to be funded in some way, though, and that is a big thing to think about. If suddenly sales tax makes everything in the United States 23% more expensive, then what is going to keep people who have lots of money from just being like, well, I don't want to spend 23% of my income on taxes, so I'm just going to buy everything cheaper.
But they're doing that already, though.
How are they? Yeah, well, how is that not already happening? We have production already outsourced. Okay, well, but if you bring stuff back into, like, if I go to Brazil,
then it's a tax on poor people and it's not a tax on rich people.
But if I go to Brazil,
it's already happening. If the billionaires are going to completely avoid it, then they no longer are paying any taxes to the United States government. All their money's going overseas, and the only people that are paying taxes to the United States government are people that are poor. But
how is the money
can't do that kind of thing?
Going overseas, though? I didn't understand that point.
So what everything in the States is now 23% more expensive.
Yeah,
but how are you going to buy it overseas? That's my question.
Yeah, let's say I want to buy a boat. Obviously I can't afford a boat, but let's say I was rich and I wanted to buy a boat, right? A very expensive boat. Let's say I want to buy a boat for $1 million, right? And at some point, if there's a sales tax of 23% or higher on buying that boat here in the States, at some point, the import fees and all that kind of stuff of getting it from overseas is going to be less expensive. And I'm just going to do that. And I'm not going to pay the sales tax. So here in the States. And so as a wealthy billionaire who likes to buy expensive boats, my taxes are going somewhere else. My money's going somewhere else instead of to the government, and only those who are forced to buy stuff here in the States. And so I feel like in order to combat that, you would have to do some sort of, like, if we went this direction, we would have to do some sort of mixed bag. We'd have to do like a income tax on a certain threshold, or it would be a progressive tax that looks a lot more like a bell curve than it does now, to where it's like it gets less and less and less, or some sort of mix of sales tax here and you want to buy outside the United States, then there's some sort of like tariff situation or whatever, or or like import tax situation, like something like that, to where we're catching people aren't falling through the cracks, or the billionaires and the millionaires are not falling through the cracks. And I don't know, and I don't want to be unfair, but I'm all for tax fairness, but I'm also thinking, like Reese is as well. I'm like, how could you, find the loopholes to get through this? And I think it'd be easy to do.
So, yeah. Well, I think that what we're circling around here, and I agree completely. Like, you don't want to drive that sort of behavior with the 23% tax. But the thing is, what we're circling around here is that it needs to be a system that works together, because we already have a very strong dollar that doesn't incentivize people to that incentivizes people to have dollars and to go and buy things in other places, but not to make things here. So it's kind of like there has to be a system in order for it to work. But if I take a laptop to Brazil and I want to sell it in Brazil, when I go into Brazil, they're going to say, why do you have 2 laptops and this one's new? I will pay a 100% tax on that just to carry it through customs. Like, they will charge a 500. That's just an example. And so there are people that do that, and it's illegal, and then they sell it there because it's just very expensive. But what I'm saying is, like, and we don't hear the world criticizing Brazil for doing that. Now, I don't know the economics on that and whether that makes sense or whatever, but if you buy a laptop in Brazil, a MacBook, it's a lot more expensive than it is here, but other stuff is less expensive. So it's a balancing act. And that's where I'm saying, okay, I think we should entertain this. This one thing by itself may drive a bad behavior, but it needs to come together with something else. And so that's why we're talking about how Trump's redoing the entire global trade system with his tariffs. It's like shake everything up and then let it settle. And all these people who say, oh, it's tariffs on, tariffs off, he doesn't know what he's doing. It's like they don't understand anything about negotiation and trade and all this stuff works, and the systems and different economic things that we're working with here. This
is a little bit unrelated, but Doug, I would ask this question just in response to this joint resolution. It's supposedly repealing the 16th Amendment to the Constitution, which was ratified in 1913. But the 16th Amendment says that Congress may collect federal income taxes. Right. Not that Congress must collect federal income taxes. Right. So I'm wondering, do you even need to pass this joint resolution to abolish the IRS and remove federal income taxes?
Is a fantastic question. I had the same thought, because I was like, well, what if we just had people in Congress who didn't do that? So make your vote with your dollar, right? And that's a different way to think about it. But if Congress just simply didn't do that, then maybe we wouldn't need that. But the problem for me is that you would literally have to have all the time a Congress that did that, and I just don't trust that that's going to be a permanent state. So
you're saying
a better permanent state is get rid of it entirely.
You're saying
you're right. They don't have to.
Yeah, so you're saying abolishing it would protect future,
it should be in our Constitution. This
from
should
having
not be
the federal income tax just come right back. That's what you're saying,
right? We should actually we should replace the 16th Amendment with one that does the exact opposite.
Instead of repealing it,
that's my opinion on it.
It says you're not allowed to establish an IRS and do away with the Federal Reserve while you're at it as well.
Yes,
but is that a different way to get that approved, or it's not a 30-some states also? If you did another amendment to. Or you're saying instead of doing an amendment, do a bill?
Speculating. I just thought it was a funny idea. I don't think that's going to happen.
It's the same threshold, though. I mean, that is, I believe, is the threshold for amendments is like 38 of the states and 2/3 of Congress. I'm pretty sure
it's very difficult. Yes,
it's very difficult, but that's the threshold
as it should be, which I agree with. But this whole thing is multifaceted, and what you were saying, Ryan, is like it's got to be a system. It's got to be a better system, and I've got even more for you guys. Actually, that's why this is a big bag of things to just pick from. So we're gonna
Before you jump into that, Ryan, who was the guy that drowned in the Titanic? I know I've heard that before.
It was Leonardo DiCaprio.
Somebody that was against the Federal Reserve and
the World Bank. Yeah, hold on, I'll find that.
There was room.
There was supposed to be like 3 or 4 families on there, and 3 jumped off. 3 didn't end up taking the trip, and this one did, and he was the one that was against setting the federal. I'll figure it out here, but
this is supposed to be one of those
pretty big
non-conspiracy theory episodes.
Yeah.
And it's quickly.
I wasn't
turning
trying to do a
into
pitch for that. I was
theory.
just pointing that out as a little humorous there.
No, I mean,
your
there's a
own
reason they call the
research.
Federal Reserve the banking cartel. Like it was, the Federal Reserve was started definitely in a conspiracy. So it's called the banking cartel for a reason. So
yeah. Well, the next one is actually a collection of bills. And I'm using the word bills pretty loosely here. These are just like acts that are being presented by politicians, things that are going to be either voted on or pushed through in some way. Okay. So this final collection is, this is all related to property taxes, which I saw somebody in the comments mention earlier. Like, can we just get rid of that first? Start there. This would be a great start. There are multiple bills right now being proposed in a variety of different states to eliminate property tax. And many of these focus more on, a lot of them, I should say, focus more on property tax reduction or certain breaks or things like that. But there are a handful of states that are looking to abolish property tax entirely. I know probably everybody's familiar with DeSantis and his rhetoric on the front, but there are more states that are trying to do this. They're putting this out there. They're actively seeking abolishing the property tax. And it's these states in green here. All of these states are looking to abolish the property tax. I know my computer's getting wiggy on my end. Is it okay on your guys' end?
Yeah.
I can see it.
All right. So that, and also I will say that Abbott here in Texas has teased the idea. He hasn't committed to it yet, but he doesn't want to be trumped by DeSantis.
No pun intended.
That's funny. That's a deep one there. That's a deep
somebody who
one.
lives in Texas. Texas is one of the few states that doesn't have an income tax. Does Florida have a state income tax?
Ooh, I don't know. I know Nevada is the other big one because
wait, Ryan, aren't you in Florida?
Yeah, no, there's no.
He just moved there.
Yeah, I'm getting to know everything here.
Tax.
No state income tax.
Okay. Well, from my understanding, as far as Texas goes, Texas was like, oh, we don't have a state income tax, but you still pay as many taxes as you would because the property taxes are just way higher. So again, it goes back to the whole, like, how does the state, either one, how do we cut enormous amounts of spending at the state level, right? The local level and the state level in the government, or how do you replace that? Because Texas property taxes are through the roof.
Yeah,
they are so high.
No pun intended.
Yeah. Yeah, no pun intended. So I get my realistic practical brain goes back to, like, how do you do that? How do you realistically either replace the taxes or just cut state spending down to the bare minimum to not have it, And it's always interesting at the state level, because the state level is not like the federal level, especially with conservative states like Texas. It's not like they're just throwing money completely away. I'd have to look more into it. It's not like California, where they're spending billions on a train that goes nowhere, and it's like already 10 years. It's already like 10 times over budget and 10 years over, and it still hasn't connected.
And nothing built.
Yeah, there's like barely anything built. Texas isn't quite so bad, so it's one of those, like, I don't think we're just hemorrhaging money for no reason. So I would be curious to see how you could cut back to be able to do away with property taxes. But
I feel like DeSantis is going to lead the charge. And I think once he gets Florida to flip from property tax to no property tax, or at least some sort of, like, change in that direction, whether it's for seniors, then less property taxes for whatever it is that it looks like. I think a lot of those other states that are trying to do that, they're going to start, like the domino effect.
Yeah,
I'm surprised to see Illinois in the green. I didn't know that. That makes me suspicious, but
really, that's funny.
Well, yeah, I mean, Illinois is not exactly a conservative state.
Yeah,
you don't have to be conservative to hate taxes, Ryan. You like that kind of everybody does,
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
So here's another fun one. This next one is kind of in the same general bucket, and it is a little morbid, but it is called the Death Tax Repeal Act. This one is an estate-related tax where the IRS charges 40% tax on transfer of real estate from the death of a person to the inheritor, and it also taxes 40% on gifting real estate between alive persons. And this bill
40%.
Yeah. So they're trying to repeal this bill too. This one came out here in 2025. And it's been the argument here on this website is that it has been presented every year, but every year that is presented, more and more people get behind it. And that's why they keep doing it. They just keep pushing it because they're like, well, it's getting traction, so we got to keep doing this. So that one, I was like, I didn't know it was 40% either. Like, that is kind of crazy. Like,
I mean, a lot of people can't pay when they get an inheritance. They can't pay it. They can't even afford to pay to get the inheritance. They have to sell the thing to get. I mean, it's insanity.
Just to pay the taxes.
Do you know who this really hurts besides like anybody who's trying to pass any sort of wealth onto their kids, essentially? I mean, it hurts everybody, obviously, but it really hurts farmers, both here in the United States and also in Europe. They're having this massive problem in Europe, and it's farmers specifically because farmers, the amount of land and machinery you have to own in order to have a farm is ginormous. It's a massive investment, right? That families will go into debt to have and spend forever to pay off. But the problem is, in order for farming to be profitable, you have to have a huge chunk of land and you have to have lots of machinery. So and then the other thing about farming as well, it's difficult to like learn all the skills you need for farming. So the people who are good at farming, they learned it from their parents who are good at farming. So if the generational farmers is a really good thing to have. If you don't have generational farmers, you don't have an agricultural industry. But what happens with the death tax is the kids inherit the farm, and then suddenly they have to pay 40% of the value of the farm. And if they don't have the cash to pay it, then you have to sell off parts of the farm or sell off parts of the machinery. And then at that point, once you start selling stuff off, it's no longer viable. And so they have to sell and get out of the whole business. And when that happens, you just lost a family that actually knew how to farm. And now you have less farmers, and it's not
corporate farms.
You can't replace that with somebody, and they're having that problem really bad in Europe.
Yeah, if we can't repeal this for everybody, we at least need to repeal it for farmers. If you can prove this land is being used for farming, because the problem is their revenue generating asset is the land itself, and that's what's getting taxed. So it's just, oh, your parents passed away, and now you're the farmer. We're gonna take a fourth of your business. We're gonna take a third of your business.
So ridiculous. Yeah, it's disgusting.
And so in my mind, I'm like, we need to pretend like the parents are still alive. That's what we need to do. You know, we need to. They're 150. Yes, don't come looking for them. You won't find them.
That's funny. Maybe not the best legal advice.
Nobody, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Education and purposes only. Entertainment.
It's worse than the UK and Europe, though, because the government is so left-leaning that they're actually intentionally trying to break up the generational farms because they want more like diverse people, and they want migrants to have, like they say, have a chance to like own farmland. The only problem is none of those people know how to farm, and so it goes back to every socialist, communist situation you've ever had, which is where as soon as you're like you go after the farmers, your whole society starves to death. I mean, Russia did it. Every socialist country's ever done it. They're like, oh, the farmers have all this wealth and all this money. Let's break this up and redistribute. And they've done it in liberal African countries. And then you give the land away to people who don't know how to farm, and everyone starves to death. It happens every single time.
Oh yeah,
people doing these
that's
things
not an exaggeration. When you look at like what's happened in communist countries, millions and millions and millions of people starving to death as a result of that. It's
from
just
that one idea. The one idea of, oh, farmers are too wealthy because they own too much land and machinery. We should break this up and give it to poorer people. That one idea has killed millions of people. Crazy. So the death tax is in that direction. So we should get away with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was my bag of property estate related taxes. But if all of that wasn't really enough for you guys, I got a little bit more. Rep. Alex Mooney from West Virginia is reintroducing the Gold Standard Restoration Act.
Nice.
This is fascinating. So
what
this
a time
bill,
to be alive. If any of this stuff passes, it's going to be like the biggest, weirdest change up ever.
I know.
I'm curious what kind of effects will occur if any of these things pass. This will be fascinating to see.
Yeah.
Do you have a slide for this one, Doug?
Oh yeah. No, I didn't have any. So I forgot to put this on for the death or Oh, I totally skipped over this one. I moved too fast in my notes. Just quick little side note. Marjorie Taylor Greene also introduced eliminating capital gains tax on home sales. So that's
Nice.
another fun one on the property stuff. Like, so that's the most likely one to go through. But this last one, I did not put a link in here for this. So if we want to go to full window on us, then that's fine.
For sure.
But okay, so I'm going to tell you guys about this Gold Standard Restoration Act. This one is pretty cool. It was first introduced in 2023 in the 118th Congress, but did not advance. But it is now being reintroduced. It doesn't really threaten taxes, but it kind of complements this whole system that we're building with everything that we've talked about thus far. It would restore the gold standard and demand transparency for the Federal Reserve and Treasury, and they would have to publicly disclose their holdings. It's my belief that we are going to a digital currency and it will be tied to gold. Whether or not this bill passes soon, I am nearly 100% certain that it will pass in the near future. We cannot keep devaluing our currency like we have been because of going off of the gold standard. And so something has to change. And here's another fun side note on the Federal Reserve. Rand Paul, as per usual, is once again calling to audit the Fed. And in addition, Thomas Massey has stated that we should actually abolish the Federal Reserve, but he is introducing a bill to audit the Federal Reserve right now. So it's like baby steps towards these kinds of things. So that's my thought on that. What's that?
An audit would definitely be nice. It's a good place to start.
Yeah, it's a good place to start. And that's what I'm saying. These are good places to start, but there's
so what that means, so what this was in 1971 when Nixon suspended the convertibility of the dollar into gold for foreign governments, basically taking us off the gold standard, which means that the dollar was a freely floating currency, which is a fiat currency. That's what, and so all the currencies in the world now are fiat currencies. Like all the major ones anyway. And so that's basically just the trust in the government. That's why it's has value now, and everybody's using it, and it's reserve currencies and all that. So it's under attack. So to go back to the gold standard would be fantastic. I mean, that would be, that's necessary to do that.
What do you think would the benefits of it would be, of going back to the gold standard? Like, I'm not against it. I'm just curious what, lower inflation, like what, like right now I'm like, okay, my dollar is $1. If tomorrow my dollar was $1 worth of gold, like what's the real difference? Curious what y'all think about that.
I think there's less ability for the central bank to just print money, and you have this less manipulation that they can do from that. You also you would require more discipline for spending. I think you'd have more trust in the currency, which we have now, but who knows how long that would last. I think also you'd have more price stability and inflation control, like you were saying. So, I think those are kind of some of the big ones. But I think if you look in the history of every single fiat currency at some point has collapsed. And so there is not a single currency that was not like you look at the Roman government, look at everything. Whenever they started to water down the things and pepper in not using real silver or whatever it was, like it all eroded and eventually collapsed. And so like that's everywhere. And so if we could go back to that,
that is a good point. And yet gold and silver were valuable then, and they're still valuable today. So it's like that is. I mean,
it's the only current. It's only.
Here's my problem with
if you think about it.
My problem with this is it requires disclosure of how much gold there is, what they've done with the gold transactions, things like that. Yeah. And we would actually have to have some gold at Fort Knox for this to actually work. And so I don't think they're scrambling to. Here's the other problem here's the conspiracy part of my brain. What happens when they go, here's the gold and it's faked, right? It's not real gold. And it's like, then it's like, who's going to go in and test? Like, I mean, because think about how much gold you'd have to have, like who's going to go in and test the gold all the time? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's just like,
well, you would have the value of gold today. Gold has a specific value today. And so obviously that value
what happens to the dollar? What happens to the dollar the day that you make this switch? You know what I mean? Like, are we going to see an insane crash? Like what would happen? That's what I would guess. Like,
I am really curious about that. Yeah, because as soon as you tie it back to gold, because you saw something that was, I don't remember exactly the reasons for this, but I know a lot of people were really angry about this when we switched off the gold standard. The government recalled gold coins, and they're like, you have to turn in your gold coins, but we'll give you what it's worth. But it was like $20 gold coins or something like this. And I don't know. Don't quote me on this. I've heard this story, but it was something like, some people didn't. Some people were like, no, I'm not giving my gold to the government. They just buried it, even though they were supposed to. And then like the people that did, they claimed that like right after they turned in their gold, like inflation spiked. And so that was like the $20 they got for their gold coin could no longer buy $20 worth of gold anymore. Now gold was worth more. I don't know how much it
But I think,
but I was curious if we go back the other direction, that we got to see like a sudden inflation.
yeah, if you think about like the fluctuation of a dollar is always relative to something else. It's either relative to gold or relative to another currency, or relative. It could go up according compare. It's always a comparison. Like if you, it's like dollar by itself. You could have a dollar index, but that's comparing to all bucket of currencies. It either has like versus the euro versus gold. It's priced in, you know what I mean, or oil. Yeah. It's all relative to something else. So but the dollar supply would become fixed. So it's kind of like, even if the dollar went up, you can't devalue it's a store of value. So it's kind of like my dollar buys one loaf of bread today. Well, tomorrow it only buys a half a loaf of bread because of inflation. And so now, and so there would definitely be a reset, but there also would be a global shift in confidence in bonds, and I mean there'd be all kinds of stuff that would happen.
I believe that if these things were to all come together, and this is a crazy kind of concept, and I think it's hard for us all to believe, but I think it's going to be the inversion of that. Like you say, my dollar buys a loaf of bread today and only buys a half tomorrow. Well, I think it's going to be more like, well, now my dollar buys 10 loaves of bread all of a sudden, and that's kind of the idea that this is going towards. And I have a theory for you guys. I'm coining this one because I designed it. This is my theory.
Coining, okay? No pun intended.
No pun intended. This is called the convergence theory, okay? We have never had bills like this all stacked up all at the same time before, as far as I can tell. I have never seen anything like this, not in my lifetime and not from my research on it. They have happened here or there, but not like this, okay? And the convergence of all of these bills in such a short time under the most likely president to sign them since Reagan would either be a massive foreshadowing and inevitability or a coincidence. And here's how this plays out. You ready? The convergence theory finalizes like this. The Fair Tax Act and these other acts that help to eliminate the IRS, particularly the 16th Amendment repealing, will end the federal income tax regime, abolish the IRS, get rid of the need for taxes. The Genius Act that's already passed builds a bridge to alternative monetary rails like stablecoins and digital currencies, crypto, things like that operate outside direct Fed control. And then the gold standard comes in and finalizes the break by shackling the Fed, restoring real money, and cementing fiscal discipline. And this is about dismantling the 20th century architecture of centralized financial power with, income taxes, fiat money, and IRS enforcement, and replacing it with a 21st century model of decentralized, asset-backed, consumption-based, and less intrusive. That is what I think Trump would call the golden age. And I think we are going to see something pretty intense happen. So there you go. There you have it. The convergence theory. That's what I got on that. What do you guys think?
I think it's a very good theory. I think the problem, part of the problem would be the Gold Standard Restoration Act. I think in my mind, obviously we've already seen the Genius Act, but the Gold Standard Restoration Act, I think that part of the equation, I think, is the weakest link, because I think the possibility for panic and just like a potential dollar crash, because it's not just as easy. You've got the trifecta. You've got where the dollar is now, with what gold do we have? What have we done with the gold? Who stole the gold from Fort Knox? It's like, that's kind of a funny way of saying it, but like what gold there is, and then also how the dollar intercepts with world currency and all those kind of things. So it's like, you can't just, if it was just two of those things, it'd be easy, but it's all three, and so then it's like, does everybody go, well, I don't know what's going to happen to the dollar. I'm just going to pull out and I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to buy Japanese yen for a while, or I'm going to buy, I'm going to put all my assets into cryptocurrency now because I'm scared of what's going to happen to the dollar. And then we force a crash on the dollar. It's like, that's where I'm wondering.
But I think, are you talking about if we went to the gold standard, or are you talking
about if we went to the gold standard? Yeah. Like, that's what I'm talking about.
The crypto would be so I see what you're getting at, but I do actually think the dollar as we know it is going to die, and it's going to be replaced with whatever crypto like comes out on top that will be gold backed.
Okay, so you're factoring that potential into the equation. You're saying
that I actually think that's going to happen. In fact, I'm
that sounds a lot. Yeah, that sounds a
that's
lot more likely to me.
So you think there will be a government gold backed stable coin? Or you think it will be a decentralized crypto coin that we're going to move to that's somehow based in gold, the price of gold? Because isn't the crypto's whole point also like fiat currency? It's not based in anything. It's just based in that people think it's valuable and it's useful for transactions.
I wouldn't say that it's that simple, but so some of them are. Yeah, I think Bitcoin is, to be honest with you. I think Bitcoin is exactly what you just said. But there are other cryptocurrencies that are based in their utility, and the utility is very valuable in and of itself. And there's a transition happening between gold backed. There are digital currencies that are actually already gold backed. And to be honest with you, I don't know. I don't understand exactly how it works, but they are tying in with the major cryptocurrency networks, and they're using those platforms to transfer money abroad.
Let's look at this. So I do agree that there would be a major shift, a major disruption, but you can't just stop using the dollar because it skyrockets, because like the whole Swift thing, like 60% of the transactions around the world involve the dollar. And so you have like reserve currencies, you have all kinds of things that people have in all these different countries. And you have the Swift system, which is how you do international settlements, is the dollar. Like that's how you make international settlements with Swift systems. You don't just come up with another system.
But you do though. That's exactly
what I'm saying.
Happening.
Right,
that's
but
already happening.
What you're saying with the Genius Act is the Genius Act is laying the foundation to allow us to come up with systems where people are using crypto for everything and not the dollar.
A system of you and me trading stuff back and forth from another state or another country is a lot different than all the banks in the world and all the transactions happening with settlements and companies buying and selling and all this stuff doesn't shift overnight. Is what I'm saying.
Definitely not.
Not overnight. It would take, I think it's going to take a few years.
Right, but what it would do though is it would limit the amount of deficit and spending and debt that the U.S. could have if we pegged it to the dollar or to gold, and it would significantly skyrocket the value of gold because of how much gold we have or don't have. What
do you think about
all this converged and we did do all of these things? Well, I can't remember the type of economics it is, but it would be the biggest economic shift in the last 200 years, because there's a term for the economics that we went to in the 1900s. I can't remember what it's called, but essentially it's based in the idea that more government spending is good and inflation is good. Those two, like that's the whole thing it's based in. It's like, and that we completely went over to that. We didn't have that before. No country really was doing that full blown. And then during the 1900s, we were like, this is fantastic. We're just full blown, print more money. And inflation, no problem. We'll just manage to have a manageable amount of inflation. And there's, evidence, I think, that has not helped the common man. The average person has not have stronger buying power today because of, especially in the last few decades, of the rampant overprinting of. And so, so going to the gold standard or doing away with the IRS or the Federal Reserve, all these things, if it would dial that back and make for real accountability, I think that would be overall a good thing to see. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit of a rocky ride, especially with shifting how the government can pull in money, or how much the dollar will be worth after it's tied to gold. I don't know exactly how that'll change it, but I think overall it'd be a good thing to see.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to I'm gonna maybe do a little more research on this to see a full picture of what the disruption would be and all the levers and what would happen. But if you even look at currencies, so like for you to buy something from another country, you have to get either that currency, you have agreement between two companies. You decide whether you're going to buy in this country's currency, another country's currency, or dollar, a third party country. You have to decide on that. And then those companies take a risk to, if that currency gets significantly devalued, then that might be a problem. But then they may pay a bank to take that risk instead of them having to take that risk. But 90% of those transactions where you exchange one currency for another, 90% of those involve the dollar. And so the
Right.
8 major pairs that you trade, if you trade currencies, involves the US dollar. And so the other ones are called cross pairs. So anyway, I just think it's interesting to think about this and how it would definitely have a disruption, but yeah, it wouldn't erase the dollar by itself.
So here's my thought, and here's my question to y'all. What do y'all think about this? This is the idea of a central bank digital currency. And
I think
this is from the Federal Reserve.gov. What are you saying, Doug?
I was just gonna say I think it's already dead in the water because of the Genius Act.
This is a terrible, horrible idea. And just to be clear, this digital currency is not the same thing as cryptocurrency. This is not blockchain. This would be even easier for them to print more or erase money from your account or add money to your account. It's worse than fiat money. I mean, it's worse. Further automatic. Control.
Yeah. Well, here's my thought is, what if they went to the gold standard on a new currency, essentially, on something like this, a digital currency? I'm not saying it's a good idea.
I see what you're getting at.
I'm not saying it's a good idea. So they tied, but they said, we're releasing because this is something right here. They say the Federal Reserve is committed to hearing a wide range of voices on these topics. So they're like, we have no idea what we're doing. Do y'all just want to like email us and let us know?
I think they do know what they're doing, and they want the central bank
that's the way
currency.
They're presenting it. They're like, we want we're seeking public feedback on a range of topics related to the central bank digital currency. But what if they did that? What if they released it? Maybe it's on a crypto platform, maybe it's in the crypto framework, maybe it's not. But it's like, what if they just said, hey, we are going to do a gold standard. We're not going to try to tie it to the dollar, but we're releasing this new digital only currency, and we're tying that to the gold. And so then you've got these two floating currencies at the same time, in the US that are centralized, obviously.
Well, it would be an American-made crypto. I do think that that's what's going to happen, but it's going to be an American-made crypto, and there's going to be a really significant transition process. It's not going to be CBDC. The CBDC has already been blocked.
I would just say that's a different. That's a different thing.
I just wanted to clarify
a gold-backed cryptocurrency would be a categorically different thing than a digital
central bank currency. I think it would come out of this idea. These are the early stages of that idea. But it would be completely different. But that was my final thought, was it would be cryptocurrency, and it would be based on, but it would not be tied directly to the dollar. It's so like you're releasing this new thing, and here's my thought. This is my if I was Orson Welles writing a novel right now, I would be writing a novel about 20 years in the future where countries all have released their own official country cryptocurrency, and they all were they realized, oh crap, if we don't get into this game fast enough, we're going to lose out, and the ones that got in first and did it right are much richer than they were 20 years before that, and like all the world wealth has like flowed around to different spaces now. That would be my novel if I was writing an Orson Welles novel right now. What do y'all think about that?
But I mean, like China and Russia have floated the idea of tying a digital currency to commodities like gold. And so I do agree that we should do that, but that would fundamentally undermine the main reason why the Fed and why a bunch of the elites would want a central bank digital currency, which is control. And so, to have it back to gold, well, yeah, I mean, that would be, but it would be a different thing, like I would have to call it something else, it's that you can't just add and take away and whatever with computer strokes.
I agree. So what they have is, that's where your stable coins come in. So the difference between a stable coin and a crypto coin or currency or whatever is that a stable coin never changes in its value. One stable coin is always going to be one stable coin. It doesn't go up and down, but they're pegged to different cryptos, whatever stable coin it is, and they're also pegged to a tangible asset. So you can peg a stable coin to gold. Right now, for example, the Ripple Ledger stablecoin, it's called RLUSD. That stands for United States dollar. It's pegged to the United States dollar. You peg the dollar to gold, you have a beautiful transition system right there.
Wow.
And now the Ripple USD stable coin that is behind XRP is pegged to gold. That's the concept. I'm not saying that's what's happening right now. And you could apply that to many of the other stable coins and digital assets out there, because a lot of them are trying to do this. It's like an arms race right now. They're all trying to be the first one to get to this finish line. because the one that does this is going to be the one that really changes the whole system. So but it's going to take a while to make all that happen. And so all of these ledgers are trying to get these gold backed coins onto their ledger so that they have an easier transition into being gold backed, pegged to gold via the dollar system. And so that might be the way that you bridge that transition so the dollar doesn't entirely collapse, but is gently sort of replaced as smoothly as possible. And then we move into digital currencies, and then they're decentralized naturally by the nature of what they already were from the get-go. And then you don't have things like the Federal Reserve controlling it from a central position of power.
Yeah.
Crazy. See that
I mean, it's also interesting, like most currencies, like, so the dollar floats on its own, but in effect, most currencies around the world are actually already pegged to the dollar. Because if you think about it, if all these countries have 60% of their reserves in the dollar, they basically need to consider the value of the dollar with their policies. Otherwise, they're undercutting their own reserves. So it's in effect, some places actually formally have it pegged to the dollar, but in effect, I would say most currencies are somewhat pegged to the dollar.
I'm throwing y'all off here, but typically I mispronounce things. Today is my day of referencing the wrong name. It's actually George Orwell, not Orson Welles. Orson Welles is the filmmaker from the early 1900s.
In your defense, Troy,
it's George Orwell, 1984. That was who I was referring to. So, I'm sorry. It's not an early form of dementia. I'm just like this. Okay, this is just the way my brain works. Yeah, it's just
Hey, you're good.
Everybody
I have a final.
Nobody,
sorry. Continue, Troy.
None of the other hosts caught what I was saying. Everyone in the comments got it. So
I did. I was trying to figure out a way to say it. So thank you.
Just say, Troy, we love you, but you're saying the wrong name right now.
So confidently, I was like, that name sounds familiar.
You make you question what you know when you just speak so confidently and with conviction.
I'll just Candace Owens this thing until everybody believes me. Oh
my gosh.
My bad.
That's funny.
So I have a thought about this switching to gold thing, which might sound a little out of left field, but this will be my final thought on this whole situation. For real. Awesome. First up, before when I was talking about economics, it was our producer put in our chat here that it's Keynesian economics was what I was referring to. So both Keynesian economics, if I'm saying that correctly, I'm probably not, which developed in the 1900s, but also more recently we have what's called modern monetary theory. That takes that up by like 10 times. And modern monetary theory is what we're running on now, which says you can have as much debt as you want, no problem, because we print our own money. So like if somebody's like, okay, you have to pay the debt back, well, we can just print more money to pay it back. Everything's done in US dollars, right? So no problem. So that's modern monetary theory. And that is definitely, I think, a bad way that we've gone. But that wasn't the point. I was just bringing up the things. So here's a really crazy idea about the gold standard. And I'm curious if this will change US foreign policy if we go to gold. The reason I say this is I've heard a lot of people say that the reason the United States is as invested in the Middle East as we are, and like the reason we're as strong allies with Israel, because we're trying to have a really strong presence in the Middle East, is because we want to be involved in the oil trade because of what is it called? OPEC?
The petrodollar.
OPEC is the world's like organization for that a lot of Middle East countries are a part of, and I think maybe even Russia, and they like set the price of oil worldwide, and they trade in the dollar, and that's part of the like I don't know, somehow the U.S. negotiated some sort of agreement
with Saudi Arabia, the petrodollar.
Okay, the petrodollar.
The agreement was protection and arm and all that if you only sell oil in dollars.
Gotcha. Yeah. So because of the petrodollar, I've heard that there's a big reason why the United States dollar is as strong as it is because 100%. All oil is traded in the dollar, right? And so in a way, our fiat money is tied to oil. So if we take that away, which I'm not saying like we take away they wouldn't trade oil in dollars anymore. They might not. But if we switch to gold, I'm just curious if our focus would shift to say maybe like Africa, where most of the gold deposits of the world are, as far as I know. You know,
That is
like,
an
you know,
interesting
people always talk about if a country strikes oil, then like America's going to show up and be like, we're going to liberate you guys. That's like imagine a nation strikes gold and then America shows up. We're going to liberate you because we need more like gold.
Wow.
Let's liberate you from your gold.
I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. Just an idea.
So bad.
Just a weird.
No, that's a good thought. That's a good thought. I think the other problem is the other thing you're saying, Reese, right before that idea was like we are so tied to our debt now as a society and as a government. It's like that's another part of the problem because like our federal debt, the amount of debt we have, kind of relies upon the fiat currency flexibility, and it would make it a lot harder.
Flexibility.
Well, I mean that's what it is.
I know what you mean. It's just funny. Yeah,
you know, it would make it a lot harder for
very
us.
positive framing. Yeah,
maintain the status quo. You know that we
right.
We
We wouldn't be able to. We would no longer be able to have infinite debt because there's not infinite amount of gold.
Right.
But the thing is, we need to understand this is that at some point that ability to do that will end. Like the bubble will pop.
Right.
So at some point,
I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it absolutely will cut the legs off of modern monetary theory because we can't just print more money when it's tied to gold. But the legs do need to be cut off.
It would take out the knees of the modern monetary theory that benefits the elite and guts middle class in America. Yes,
the legs of that need to be
which is
cut.
necessary.
We've been the first thing we need to do is we need to audit the Fort Knox, and figure out, do we actually have any gold left or not? Because if not, then we need to, it's like we need to start storing our money under the mattress again. You know what I mean? Like we need to start doing something to fix that. But yeah, I'm going to ask for closing thoughts since we're over the hour mark. We're at 105 now, and then we're going to close this thing out.
My closing thought is to thank Genesis Gold Group for sponsoring us again today, because what a sponsor to have for this episode. We just talked about
gold. I didn't think about that.
Speaking of which,
yeah, that commercial is going to run here in a little bit, but I'm done.
My final thoughts are just, I think it's fascinating to see all of this stuff being discussed. I think we need to have more conversations around this and get more understanding and just really understand the implications of this. But one thing's for sure, I mean, you mentioned that nothing like this has happened before, where all of this has circled around the same time. And so there's obviously an appetite for this in our political leaders. We hope and pray that changes will be made, because without changes, it's not going to last. And so we definitely need changes. What it actually looks like and the implications of that, it's going to be interesting to watch. But I think we need to seek the Lord for how we protect ourselves. Our trust isn't in money or in our gold or anything. It's in Him. And so, but we do need to be aware of what's going on. But our trust and faith is ultimately in the Lord, and that's what it is. So, but yeah,
here's my final thought: is that, like, with what's happening with the tariffs this year, I know people are upset about it. I honestly believe a year from now, people are gonna be able to look back and say, "Oh, dang, this was generally a good idea." And we've seen something that was very disruptive turn out for the good and for the better. And I think if we're not able to pass bills like this year, I think in two years from now, we may be able to, because people are it's like, once you start disrupting the status quo, people start to get, a little bit anxious. But when they see, okay, maybe we can make big changes and actually see good, positive results, then it's more likely to happen again.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. And that's generally the idea that I'm getting at, is maybe not these bills, like you said, but there's a trend toward this, and there's a very strong trend. And typically those trends just have a tendency to grow. And I think if politicians are smart, they're going to pick up on the fact that that's what we, the people, want in general. Maybe not everybody, but most people want some sort of reformation in this area. And so I think we're going to get there at some point, whether it's next year or 10 years from now. I do think that in our lifetimes, we're going to see it personally, but that's my opinion. And I think that is a wrap for this show. And that was a fun conversation, guys.
Yep. That's the stream for today. Thank y'all for joining us, and we will see you next time. Gold is not just a backup plan if the world falls apart. It's an investment opportunity that could set you up for generations. There's never really a bad time to invest in gold, but you want to make sure you have the right guide. And that is where Genesis Gold Group shines. Whether you are a first-time buyer or a seasoned investor, their trusted expertise and competitive pricing makes them an easy choice. They offer tangible assets in case of emergencies, but they can also design the perfect IRA just for you. And they'll even cut through all that confusing red tape from the IRS. We at Filibusted love the genius design of the Prepper Bar, which breaks up into sections like a chocolate bar. But if you prefer a more high security insured gold storage, they have that too. And unlike Fort Knox, the gold is actually there and 100% owned by you. Genesis Gold Group is a safe, simple, and convenient way to invest. Visit filibustedgold.com today for your free investment guide from Genesis Gold Group.